All right, here we are. Hello, everybody. This is Between Two Teachers, and this is our episode, I don't know what number, but it's Tuesday, May the 17th, and bringing you news about education from all over the place. So, yes, my name is Consuelo Lara.
And I'm Madeline Cronenberg. And we will bring education news from all over the place. But the place we are in is what we're going to talk about first, and that's our land acknowledgement. We pause to acknowledge that we are gathered on the ancestral territory of Huichin, part of the unceded land of the Chochenyo and Karkan-speaking Muwekma Ohlone people. We remember their continued connection to this region and give thanks to them for allowing us to live, work, learn, and pray on their land. We offer our respect to their elders and all Ohlone people of the past and present. All right, and I am going to invite you again to like this video if you're watching it on YouTube, and feel free to share it out, because we're always happy to have somebody new come in and become part of the Between Two Teachers family of watchers. So let us talk about what's going on. I do want to start with, here's just one idea that's happened nationally that we hadn't talked about, that I've sort of had bookmarked a while ago. And this is going to be interesting to see if this grows. There are now opportunities and places in the country, Colorado being one of the first ones, where they have replaced the special ed buses with ride shares.
How does that work exactly?
Well, the students, what they do is, so obviously somebody started a ride share company. Somebody, in this case, it's called Hop, Skip, Drive. And Hop, Skip, Drive that then just charges you for the district, or whoever the Colorado district is in this case, for taking students from one place to another. So the question is, it's really the same as using a bus company, right? But they also can do the pickups. It just changes it just changes the whole, one of the issues. It's a disruptor to student transportation.
Sure.
And that's going to be interesting to see if it grows and how successful it is in transporting at-risk students or transporting any students.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the big things is, I'll bet you in those ride shares, they have seat belts.
Yeah.
So the safety issue is.
Yeah, it's very different, right? It's very different. And I think it also opens up a lot of things. So it's just something in the many things that are changing in education, in the education world, and also in the transportation world, for that matter. That's right. True. Where they're taking away, where we live, they're removing the BART parking lot. And the BART parking lot will be a thing of the past. So how do you get to BART? Well, they're having to figure out how they're going to get all the people who would normally drive to BART, get them to BART. Yeah. All right. This is this whole conversation around what's the last mile. How do you get there? How do they want to provide that service? So that reminded me of this service. Okay. All right. So just one more thing that's being done. The other ones, I was just going to mention, we have so many issues nationally around the CRT issues, where they talk about the whole term of grooming children. That has become a weaponized term, that teachers are grooming children to become homosexual. That's basically what they're saying. And the way you groom somebody to do that is you show them the books that are on the banned list. Right? And so the laws that are now being have been written by ALEC and these other right-wing organizations that are being passed in different states are to stop, this is how they do anti-grooming laws. And they ultimately are the ones that are are weaponizing these books and saying that any book that talks about the two mommies, two daddies, or it's okay to be different, those are all have to go, because those are the grooming books. And right now, it's all over. Ohio is competing with Texas. Texas and Florida are the leaders, but they are not alone. And all these other red states are competing with them to bring in all of this legislation.
Yeah.
But that's going to be the new term. The attack on teachers is that teachers are grooming their students for this perverted behavior.
Oh my goodness. Oh,
I know, but that's so that has not gone away. This is an election day in a number of states right now. Who gets elected will make a difference. Who we vote for counts. I wanted to just mention that coronavirus is not gone, and it's making a comeback. What is gone are the mask mandates.
Yeah.
Pretty much everybody has ended their mask mandates, except they have started to come back. And what's happening is different localities are looking at their COVID case rates and bringing them back. And the two big school districts that have done that are Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh had such a high, not Pittsburgh, California, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is a big district, a big city, had COVID case rise in Allegheny County, where they are, and they are back. They are all masked up. And the state of Hawaii, which is so interesting. Their cases went up enough that they have brought back, their students are masked now, and they have to stay masked all summer.
All right.
So it's not, it's not a conversation that we're done having.
No.
Just like we're not done with any of it. We're not done with we're not done with the mask. We're not done with talking about the vaccinations. It's not over. It's not over.
Absolutely.
The other thing I did want to mention was, let's go to, I just want to talk a little bit about parent organizations. We haven't mentioned this before.
Yeah.
There are two in particular, and they too can be weaponized. You have to be aware of how easy it is to start an organization, and these organizations are in fact political and do in fact have agendas. And the one that is the most interesting, I think, of all of them, just because of how misleading it is the National Parents Union, which is funded by interests, the privatizing interests.
Wow.
Right? It just is. So here you think that with the word union in it, so they co-opted it. This is the term social justice appropriation.
Creation. That's it. That's it.
That is what we have here.
Yeah, to mislead people into thinking, oh, this is something I could unions. Yeah, let me support that. But that's the total opposite of what this is about.
Totally the opposite. It is totally the opposite. So just you really have to do your homework before you just automatically join an organization, which sounds great. A National Parents Union sounds great, but if you look at it and look at the funding, it is what it is. It is funded by other people, as opposed to an organization called Parents for Public Schools. Parents for Public Schools is supported by it's not an AstroTurf organization. It doesn't have this other money coming in from other places. It's really supported by parents, and it does in fact work with teachers. It absolutely does work with teachers. So that's just be aware of all of them. I mean, right now there's another teachers, another parent group, the parent group that was involved in the recall for the San Francisco School Board and successfully did recall it. They renamed themselves the San Francisco Guardians. Now that recall was funded by 3 billionaires.
Wow. Yeah.
Against the teachers that had been these board members who had been supported by the teachers.
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So now it goes on because there's uh, an effort to change the laws for recall that's going to be on the ballot in San Francisco. And so they're opposing that. And so the San Francisco Guardians, who used to be the recall committee, are opposing the new recall restrictions that are on the ballot in San Francisco.
Yeah. Yeah.
So parents are active.
Yeah.
Very active.
Sure.
Okay, well, so tell us about the county. What is happening at the county?
Okay. Well, everybody knows I'm on the Contra Costa County Board of Education. And, we get these reports about what's going on with curriculum and what's going on with budgets, and pretty much get put on the consent agenda, a lot of that. And many times we're told, well, you don't have a lot of decision making in some of these areas, so don't worry about it. Just rubber stamp these things.
Historically, that is how it
That's
operates,
been
right?
happening. But I've had the wonderful opportunity to talk with some teachers. Being a retired teacher, this is who I listen to, and being part of the union is very important to me. So things are not all the pretty picture that it's being painted. So one of the things that we do that is within our purview is to adopt and approve curriculum. So rather than just rubber stamp on consent agenda, I've decided that we need to be more proactive. Well, I do, and I can share with my, other board members what I find. But I think the way we do that is through a curriculum committee, and that there's so much we could do with this curriculum committee. So I'm very excited about it, listening to these teachers, because they want what's best for students.
Right.
And they want better materials. They want professional development. They want support staff, because that helps them be better teachers, and it's odd that there would be this pushback on those concepts, So, and I think this curriculum committee would be very beneficial to the superintendent and the staff, and help them as well. So we're looking at all of the different benefits of doing this. We can look at reading levels. We can look at placement of students. I mean, there's just so many things we could do: evaluate, recommend, and see what kind of interventions are there. And this is the perfect time to do it, because the year's over. So how did that curriculum work for you? And of course, we've got to find out what year of the adoption. There's all of that going on. And I think, there's that pretty picture, but then there's the reality. How about if we just do what what we're saying that we do, so that it coincides, and that teachers feel supported in what they do. So what's closest to the student is the teacher. The teacher creates the environment. The teacher implements the curriculum. The teacher connects the student to the support systems. So it's when you want to nurture and have students be successful, you need to nurture and have teachers be successful, because that's how that works. So I'm very excited about this curriculum committee. I think it's going to be very positive and make some really good changes in the county. It's going to be beneficial. I believe that. So we're also looking at site councils, how active they could be at our 5 schools, and how useful that could be for budget, for staffing, looking at our goals. And then, of course, the big issue is the minutes of teaching. Or I remember we talked about time on task. And I remember they said, you can't come over the intercom between certain times, because it's breaking into the time on task or the instructional minutes. I mean, that was sacred. They said this time on task is sacred. So if you have a student that's disruptive, which a lot of the schools do, you need to have staff who can then help them self-regulate, so that the teacher can get those sacred time on task minutes for everybody else.
And that process of self-regulation requires resources, so that you need to have a place where the student who needs that support can go, where they will get the care they need, so that the students who are in the classroom can continue on task, right?
Yes.
That's really such an important issue. If you don't provide an opportunity for children who need that level of self-regulation, and that need that, this is not a surprise, this is a challenge these students bring to you, then how can you not provide the resources to maintain the support system around that child?
Exactly.
Right. And it's not a mystery. This is not something you have to invent. What you have is you simply have a place, an additional physical space for the children to go, and you have a resource person who's there to support them. Right. That's what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, and these are the county serves the most vulnerable of our children.
Right.
So, yeah. So those things all need to be in place. And that's where resources need to be spent. So
Exactly. Right. Right. And so when you're looking at your budget and how you're going to go ahead and put those resources in place, these are the things that you look at as your goals, right? You can't have student success if you don't provide an environment that allows your teachers to teach and your children to learn.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's all within our purview as county board of education.
What you're elected to do.
That's
That's
what we're elected
exactly
to
right.
do.
That's why you sign off on the budget.
Yes, we do. So I, for one, want to do my job. And that's one I see that's very important.
Yeah.
So we'll be doing that. So I'll bring more information about our curriculum committees.
Well, let me pick up something from that. There's a next thing I did want to talk about was some best practices. And these come to us from the Next Generation Learning Challenges organization. And these are the 5 essential systems for student support that were written by a superintendent and his experiences. And they are so perfect. And they really are exactly something that every district can do. The first one we've talked about many times, and it really is a no-brainer, is looping. Stay with your class more than 1 year. All right. And some teachers have in high school, for example, in there are some programs, the orchestra, and actually in the arts programs in high schools where you only have one teacher who does theater or orchestra or dance, they have that student for sometimes all 4 years, which makes and they become then the go-to connection for that student.
Yeah.
And the same thing, it's true in sports as well, right? If you're so there is no reason it can't be true in the classroom. You can have the same teacher 2 years. You can set that up. Many teachers want to do that because they also know that they can have a deeper and better situation with their families academically if they can do looping. So that's number one.
Helms Middle School, I taught ELD 7th and 8th graders, and sometimes 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s. So it very easily I could have kids for 2 years. Right. And the difference, they came in, they knew my system, they got right to work. The parents said, "Oh, I'm so glad that,
right.
I have you again." And so there was that connection. I mean, it is great. 2 years. If you just have them 2 years, that can make a big difference.
It makes a huge difference. And it makes a difference in 1st and 2nd grade. Think about if you keep your teacher for 1st and 2nd grade.
Oh, yes.
I mean, that is, and 3rd and 4th grade. Those are times where
yes,
it really does make a difference. So anyway, that is his number one. Number 2 is advisory. And this would be for high school students to have a place to connect instead of not have a place to connect. Right? So that in the morning, there is a teacher who has that responsibility of putting together an advisory, being responsible for making personal connections. Number 3 is student-led conferences. Totally changes how you look at how a student looks at their own experience in the classroom. Yeah. If they get to sit there, go over their work, and they're the ones who set it up and explain to their parents and to their teacher how things are going.
Yeah, they get the opportunity, the control of their own learning and where they want to go and what their growth is. And uh, kids are hard on themselves. When you let them do evaluation, oh my gosh, they're
But then you're really a team. That sets you
yes,
together. The teacher, the parent, and the student are the team if the student gets to be the leader. And the student is the leader anyhow, because if they refuse to, I mean, they are the ones who are in charge. We
that's
make
right.
believe they're not, but the truth
Yes,
is that they are.
exactly.
So student-led conferences is number 3. Number 4 is teaming, team teaching, which makes so much sense as well, where you can come together, you can fill in each other either by curriculum. So you have the math teacher, you have the 2nd grade math teacher, and she teaches math across 2nd grade, and she team teaches. So all of the classes, they have their ELD with an English teacher, an ELD teacher, and they have the math teacher. They both. It makes a huge difference. You get to teach to your strength, the thing that you love to do, and you're much less likely to need additional support. Everybody shouldn't have to teach everything.
Yeah, when at Helms, we had the small schools. And
Right.
so it felt like we were team teaching because we could sit around the table, we all had the same kids. And how are they doing in art? How are they doing in, who's gonna call the parent?
Yeah,
Who's gonna
that's
back to
exactly
school?
that.
You're
There
right.
you go.
We needed less support because we could all kind of pitch in and
Share it. You had somewhere to share out, as opposed to being just exhausted from you being the only one who's in charge of all of these issues.
yeah, isolated and stuff. Teaming is big, 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 big.
Teaming is huge, and all of these things don't cost any money. Well, advisory does, but you can do these things. They're all very doable.
Yeah.
And the last one, and I know this superintendent was a big believer in this, but it totally is true, is movement and outside time. To give kids a chance to get up and get their wiggles out, make sure that you have recess, that you do movement in your classroom, so that you're not just sitting there focused on a screen or focused on your teacher.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
That's it. Those are the big 5 that he
Yeah.
had.
And with when COVID started, there was a lot with the new buildings about outdoor spaces to teach outdoors, and so like big walls that could open
In
up.
West Contra Costa,
West
there's
Contra.
Obama, Michelle Obama.
Yes, that was like that.
This particular principal, this particular superintendent is the one who, in fact, did design it. And so he is Mr. Duffy. Matthew Duffy wrote this for Next Generation Learning Challenge, Next Generation Learning Challenge organization. And he has gone on to new positions. So I want to talk a little bit about the new positions in a minute. But before I do that, I want to do one other best practice. And that is the Palo Alto Promise.
Ah, yes.
Palo Alto is the highest paid, highest performing school district in the state of California by certain rankings. And it makes tremendous sense. They're in a very affluent community. Obviously, they're right there in Stanford, so there's tremendous academic achievement. The professors live there. All the people who work at Stanford, many of them live in Palo Alto. Not to mention the Silicon Valley world isn't where Palo Alto is. It's the center of it. They opted to not do a strategic plan, which I think is an interesting choice, because certainly there's the industry of strategic planning that produces a lot of documentation that people can have and to focus you on your goals for your community. But there are real issues is to you really have to work to make this strategic plan be alive and well in your district, because most people are not involved in it. Most people are not going to read it. You really have to get it to where it's understandable and useful to your team. So they rejected it. They didn't do one. And instead they created something called the Palo Alto Promise. And they have adopted priority areas. Now they also have steps in terms of they adopted steps and how they were going to support each priority area. But that's not a strategic plan. They didn't go through process of strategic planning that is typical of districts that hire a consultant to do that.
Mhm.
And their 5 areas for 22-23 are, I mean, it's just so interesting that this is what they came up with. Serve and celebrate others.
Yeah.
Number one. So they're celebrating their staff. All their staff, right? They're celebrating their parents. They're celebrating everyone. So that's like a mindset. And to have that as number one, instead of high academic achievement, all the other things that you might see in other places is interesting to me. Serve and celebrate others is number one. Number two, mental health and wellness. We're all looking at that.
Yeah.
For so many reasons with everybody, they're focused on it. Number three is the first one where we get to anything academic, and that's early literacy. They want all of their kindergartners to come in ready, right? They're in pre-K, TK, they're very focused on everybody being ready to go. Number four is equity and excellence. And number five is healthy attendance.
That's something.
Isn't that interesting? That is what they came up with for their 5 areas. So I just wanted to point them out and pull them up and lift them up as a best practice, because I think what they came up with are things that often don't wind up in a strategic plan.
No.
But right?
That's right. Yeah.
You look at strategic plans, and these are not the things that come up to the top, but these are things that will make you the highest performing district. Because if you take care of this, the performance takes care of itself.
Exactly.
All right. This is the picture of how you support your team.
Yes.
Support your team by serving and celebrating, by making sure the mental health issues are there. You've got the mental health support, that your youngest children are served, that there is equity, and that you do pay attention to attendance. I was impressed by them.
Very, very impressive. I love when we go over best practices. We just keep, we got to keep repeating them so people get it. Because then we find out, oh, they're doing it sometimes.
Yeah, they do. Yes, exactly. And it's good to see where it's working. I mean, these people are the number one, right?
Yes,
and it's not just because they have so much money.
No, these are just good basic practices. Yeah.
Right. They're thinking about it. All right. So then the final thing, the next thing I want to talk about are the big shifts in assignments, job assignments, education leadership in the Bay Area. So the first leader is who we spoke about before, Mr. Duffy, and Mr. Duffy has taken on superintendency in San Bruno Park. And so he will be leading their team. I'm sure he's over there right now because it's been announced, and he's available to go over and visit their schools. And I know they will have the opportunity to do looping and advisories and all of the things that he had on his list. Yep. Then there's a gentleman, Mr. Ruben Aurelio, who worked in Berkeley. And also in West Contra Costa with Mr. Duffy, and he has accepted the superintendency of St. Helena. So he'll be up in a very wealthy district as well. St. Helena has their wine auctions when they do their fundraisers, their parent fundraisers. It's all about the wine. Yes. So there's that. Then there is another grad. These are all alums of West Contra Costa, right? This is the thing we all have in common. Yes. So another alum of West Contra Costa, who for me is a double alum, because he not only was here in West Contra Costa, he went from West Contra Costa as a principal to San Francisco as a director. And then he went to my district where I taught for 30 years. He became the superintendent in Hayward, Dr. Wayne. Matt Wayne, has been named as the superintendent of San Francisco. So that's a big role. He's going to be on the national stage, and I know that he can handle that. I mean, the one thing that people need to do, and I'm sure this is true in San Francisco, they need to have somebody who had experience as a superintendent. You don't want to bring in somebody brand new, and who can deal with the political issues. And Hayward certainly had them. He's had lots of experience. He'll be a great superintendent for San Francisco. And then the last one, that Berkeley also needed a new superintendent because their superintendent went to Lafayette. So he did an interesting thing. He announced that he wanted to spend more time with his family, and then the next day he became superintendent of Lafayette. So that's Mr. Stevens, and that's how it goes. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
There was nothing unusual about that, but anyway, there was an opening then in Berkeley, and they hired an administrator from San Francisco, and so now the only place that doesn't have a superintendent is Hayward. So Hayward will be on the search, and when they get a superintendent, we will announce it here because I'm always interested in what happens in Hayward.
Very good.
Yeah. It is good. And I know all of these things, everybody, moves around. It's a musical chairs, but it's the education musical chairs at the top game that we play.
Yeah.
And then the final thing is I wanted to do a shout out. And I think I'm just going to put the first shout out is to the LA Teachers Union, because the LA Teachers Union is asking for what they deserve. Right. And people think that, oh, well, you should get a COLA, ask for 2% or 3%. They're asking right now on the table for a 20% raise.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that is the answer to the teacher shortage. We shouldn't, make believe that it's not. Huge percentages of young teachers are leaving because they are so underpaid compared to what their level of education will give them in other careers.
Absolutely.
Right. And that's a deliberate choice. We have to say, we have to pay these professionals. We have no problem paying the superintendents. Let me tell you, no problem with that.
Yeah.
So we should be able to pay our professionals.
I don't think that's unreasonable at all. It's good.
No, it is. And I was really pleased to see that UTLA put that on the table. So we'll see where it goes, but it is there. It is there. So big shout out to them. And then my other shout out here is to Tony Thurmond, the superintendent, and to the legislators who are putting very positive bills in the Sacramento legislature right now. So there's I think it's Assembly Member Moritz Suchi, who has AB 1614, which will increase base funding. California underfunds since Prop 13. We underfund education. We do it across the country, but we really do it in California. This would increase the base funding. And this one is for everybody. Every district gets some level of base funding. This would be one that would just bring that number up. The second one is, so that one is AB 1614. This one is SB 830 from Senator Porcentino. And Senator Porcentino's bill is to compensate the districts based on their attendance, on their enrollment numbers instead of the attendance number.
Yes.
Because it makes no sense. And very few states pay you for attendance rather than enrollment. What you have are, you hire for enrollment. You can't forecast attendance.
Yeah.
Right. So it makes no sense to do it the way we do it. And it is a huge pressure on all districts to not have the enrollment be the driver of their funding.
Yes.
So it's a really important one.
Good.
The other one that Mr. Thurmond also is sponsoring is SB 952 with Senator Limon. And that is to provide funding to convert existing schools to dual language immersion schools, which makes so much sense, right? We're in a multicultural world. We have so many children who are English language learners. Let's celebrate that and have dual language schools.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. And the last one is from Senator Ting, Phil Ting. And Senator Ting has proposed a change in the COLA to raise the amount that we get every year from 10% to 15%.
Yes,
That would be a huge difference
yeah,
for our funds. So all of these are about money, but to not talk about money is money. From money comes the resources where we care for our children. And so they are critically important to where we wind up.
absolutely. And people can be proactive, support these, send letters, write, emails to support these, because these are good for education.
Absolutely. These are the critical things for education. So I just wanted to let you know that if people wonder, what is the superintendent doing? I think the superintendent, well, he's being political. Well, yes, he's being political, because if that's where it's his job to be political, right? To get the resources. People who are elected, the one thing they can do, they're not teaching in a classroom. What they're doing is they have access to advocate for resources. That's what it comes down to.
That's it.
Right. That's what it comes down to. And if you don't have it, then shame on you if you don't. That's sort of the thing.
Absolutely. You're not doing your job. That's
Right.
it. Yeah.
That-
All right.
So that's it for me.
Me too. This is good. All right, everybody.
Bye. See you next time.
See you later. Bye-bye.